Hello everyone, Ember here, and welcome back to a new video. In this one, I'd like to take a look at the Many Slowkings of GLC. So what is GLC, for those of you who don't know? Well, it's a single prize only, no Roblox format allowed. It is singleton, except for basic energy, so you can only play one copy of each card in your deck, except for basic energy. And you're only allowed one type per deck. So just be careful when playing like GLC, because if you want to put Slowking in your deck, then of course you won't be able to put like a water type Slowpoke with a psychic type Slowking and vice versa. You can only allow one type per deck. So as for the basics, there is some quite fun options for Slowpoke, like a very cute derpy Pokemon overall. But yeah, it does have some useful attacks, like a recurring theme is that it can retrieve item cards from the discard pile, which is quite fun, with either the Scavenge one or the Ideal Fishing Day, which is quite fun names for attacks. But yeah, I think Scavenge is probably my favorite just because I love the simplicity of the artwork. But I think overall though, if you're just looking for like the best Slowpoke, quotation marks, then probably 70 HP and a higher retreat cost is what you really want. So, like, as for the psychic ones, like, a high retreat cost on tail fishing, but, certainly a very useful attack, I would say, even if there's, like, maybe a 50% chance you get to discard a card from your hand. But, still quite useful Slowpoke, I would say. Yeah, the first up, though, one is we have one from, I think that's Dark Explorers. Yeah, that's Dark Explorers. Has the attack hand press, so if you have more cards in hand than your opponent, then you have bragging rights and you get to do 80 damage, which is just a bit meh, really. Like for 3 energy, it's a bit expensive. Like, sure, Cybolt can do 20 damage, and on a coin flip, you do Polarisis, but not really that useful. Like, it's a coin flip, you're only doing 20. Yeah, it's a bit weak, sadly. Not off to a good start, but there is better Slowkings yet to come, such as this one from, I think that's XY Breakpoint. Has a very useful ability, Royal Flash, which says once in your turn, you may flip a coin, and if heads, move an energy from your opponent's active Pokemon to one of his or her bench Pokemon. So you could combine this with cards like Handheld Fan and just like Energy Disruption in general to really disrupt what your opponent can achieve energy wise. Like just move all their energy to the bench or try and discard it all, which is very useful. So quite a nice piece, I would say, in a water type control deck. Also, Psych Up for a water and a colorless does 40 damage. And during your next turn, this Pokemon Psych Up attacks do 40 more. So you do 40 this turn, then next turn you do 80. So it's kind of like doing 120 damage across 2 turns, but then every turn, like after that, you'll be doing 120, which it's not like the worst thing in the world for 2 energy, but you'd want to be doing, I think, a bit more damage. Like the ability's really nice though. Like the ability is what kind of saves this card because like the attack, yeah, you're not really doing a ton of damage, but you might not need to do a lot of damage if your opponent can't attack back in the first place, which might be like the design philosophy behind this card. But yeah, it's a very useful ability, very disruptive. Next up, though, is we have a one from Sun and Moon, and this is Burning Shadows, I do believe. Has 2 attacks. Drifter Shore says search your deck for a card and put it in your hand and shuffle your deck. Could be quite useful in a pinch, but then unarmed for a whopping 3 psychic energy does 110 damage. But if you have no cards in your hand, you get to ignore all energy in this guy's attack cost. So 110 damage for no energy is somewhat respectable. I think this is maybe not as good as like it could be. Like it definitely was better like back in the Sun and Moon era because this could pretty much just 2-shot anything. Like I think 250 HP was definitely the highest, and that was on like a Metagross that already had like resistance to Psychic. So you couldn't even reach the very, very big Pokemon back in the day. But like still, 110 damage could 2-shot most things. So like in GLC, it's okay. Like you're still 2-shotting everything, but if you really want to build around like a low energy count style deck, maybe you're building around just 1 energy attackers like Neoligo, for example, then maybe the Slowking has a place. It's kind of awkward because you do have to build around it. Like you can't really play too many supporters or like too many items that would have to like sit in your hand and couldn't just be played on the turn that you drew them. So, that's kind of annoying. You could use stuff like Rose Tower. So, like once your turn, you may draw cards until you have 3 cards in your hand, which is a bit risky, but you could just leave it in play. And then hopefully your opponent doesn't bump your stadium. And then next turn, you can at least draw 3 cards with Rose Tower and then draw 1 for turn. So some fun little combos for sure. Like it is usable to some degree, but I do worry that 110 damage for no energy is not really enough of a payoff these days. But still pretty cool though, I would say. Next up is we have a one from Lost Thunder. This one has 2 attacks, one interacting with a Lost Zone, of course. Memory Melt says look at your opponent's hand and you get to put a card you find there into the Lost Zone. quite a disruptive attack, I would say, especially when combined with things like Judge or Xerasek. So, you just shrink your opponent's hand and then say goodbye to one of their precious cards. Because typically your opponent is going to want to keep around cards that are very important to them. So, yeah, being able to just choose one of them and send to Veloso, never to be seen again, is very disruptive. So, I do quite like Slowking in that sense. Also has the attack Psychic, which for 3 colors does 60, and then 20 more damage for the amount of energy attached to your opponent's active. Okay, so not the worst thing in the world. Like, you could use a triple E or like Frostmoth if you're just playing a water type deck, or like Baxcalibur. So not the worst attack in the world, but I definitely think like the more appealing attack here is certainly Memory Melt. So yeah, definitely more of a disruptive Slowking again, I would say. Next up is we have a Galarian Slowking. Sadly, the only one currently in GLC, which is a bit of a shame. And sadly, there is no Galarian Slowpoke for Dark types. There is only Psychic type Galarian Slowpoke. So if you want to play Galarian Slowking in your deck, you'll have to use something like a Dream Ball to get it out to play. Yeah, it does have the interesting ability, Mysterious Potion, which says once in your turn, you may choose one of your Pokemon and flip a coin. If heads, heal 90 damage from that Pokemon, which is, pretty respectable. But if tails, put 3 damage counters on that Pokemon, which is terrifying. So, like, on the one hand, you could use this to heal a Pokemon, and, it's great. But on the other hand, you could just flip tails, and then, you damage that Pokemon even more, potentially even knocking it out. So, it is a bit risky. However, there is some Pokemon that would actually prefer you to flip tails. Like this Spiritomb, for example, like doing 10, not 10 damage, 30 more damage for each damage counter on Spiritomb. So, if we ever get any more of these styles of attacks, then this Slowking can actually be quite useful. Like, you could just try and flip tails, and then when Spiritomb is already damaged, then you just don't risk Galarian Slowking at all. You don't need to do it. So, yeah, quite fun, some fun little combos there, but I think overall right now there's just not really enough synergy, and the healing's not really super relevant, and it's just a bit too awkward to get out to play. But, it's a cool option though, at the very least. Next up is we have a bit more of the more infamous Slowking, I would say, like from Stellar Crown. Like Seek Inspiration is an attack that sees quite a lot of play in Standard right now. Discard the top card of your deck, and if that card is a Pokemon that doesn't have a rule box, which is every Pokemon in GLC, then you get to choose one of its attacks and use it as this attack. So the main idea here is that we're copying like really expensive, just very expensive attacks, really. Like there is some fun ones, like I think there's a Necrozma that can do like 160 if it has a special energy attached to it. So, there's some fun, solid options here. But I think overall, the Slowking is just a bit better in Standard, fully enough, because you just have like more access to consistently like fiddling the top card of your deck. So you have more ways of guaranteeing a Pokemon to discard in the first place. So, like I don't think this is the worst thing for GLC, but overall, like I do worry that there's just better options and better ways of playing those Pokemon that you're trying to copy. But, still a fun card though at the end of the day. Next up though is we have one from Prismatic Evolution. So a lot of Slowkings in the TCG, but yeah. This one has Wash the Slate Clean, which for water and 2 colors does 70 damage, and you may put 2 energy attached to your opponent's active Pokemon into their hand. So very disruptive with the likes of Team Star Grunt and Handheld Fan that we mentioned earlier. So again, you're just trying to disrupt your opponent. Now, sadly, double colorless is not in GLC anymore. However, you could, of course, just use Frostmoth or Baxcalibur, so it's really not the end of the world. So, yeah, you've got plenty of options for disruptive Slowkings, really. I don't know which one's the best. Like, this one seems really solid, though, like, overall, just for moving energy. And it's also at the point where, like, you're not just putting the energy on one of your opponent's Pokemon, it's just going straight back to your opponent's hand. So if you're able to disrupt their way of attaching energy, or, in the case of fighting types who don't have any energy acceleration, then Wash the Slate Clean could be really disruptive. So yeah, quite like this attack overall. Just a shame it's not really doing any more damage. But yeah, thank you for watching. I do a new set review for GLC with each new release, so subscribe if you're interested in being updated. This is a series to stay, so let me know which Pokemon you would like to see, although I'll probably end up covering Slowbro next, because it just fits in with the theme, But yeah, if you want to dive into the competitive side, then Omnipoke and the Format Creator Trigger Gym have both done fantastic videos and guides for each type. But yeah, let me know what you think down below. Will you be playing Slowking in your GLC deck? And yeah, thank you for watching.